Regular people are taking their knowledge and content, packaging it up in an online course, and they're making a living doing it. But not everyone is successful with online courses. There's a right way and there's a wrong way, and I'm here to help course creators actually succeed with online courses. Hi, I'm Jacques Hopkins, and this is the Online Course Show. And off we go. Welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. I'm Jacques Hopkins, and here with us as well as our co-host. How's it going, Dr. K?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing this morning?
Doing well. Ready for another episode of the Online Course Show. We see each other right now. You don't see anything different about my setup over here?
Let me look. No, I don't.
I got a new desk, man, and I get excited about weird things, but that's like the biggest thing going on my side right now. I got this new desk, and I'm like so excited about it. Like probably more so than I should be. But I mean, what do you think? Does it look good on camera?
It looks great.
Yeah, my last desk, quote unquote, actually wasn't even a desk. It was this old map chest. And you know the biggest problem was it wasn't an actual desk, so there's no leg room underneath at all. And so I don't know if you noticed before, I usually was like kind of turned to the side over here. So I've got leg room now. It also gives me a much bigger surface to do things. You know, I've got this overhead camera because I do online piano courses, and so the overhead shot is good too, but good for that. But with the online course guy showing things, you know, it's more room for me to use that overhead camera, diagram things out, show people how to run a successful online course business like that too. And to top it all off, it's height adjustable, and it allows me to stand sometimes, sit sometimes, but that's also good for just getting the framing of a video shot perfect as well. So it's an uplift desk if anybody's interested. I did a lot of research, and I'm really excited about my new uplift desk.
Well, that looks fantastic. You know, as we're recording this, it is New York Fashion Week, I guess. And I heard yesterday, listening to a podcast, that Lowe's Home Improvement Store is partnering with New York Fashion Week. Because they say in the age of Zoom, you know, in the past, somebody that's really stylish, like they would do it all with their clothes. But picture somebody's wearing Louis Vuitton clothes or whatever, these really high-end brands, and then behind them is like some cardboard boxes. Like, that's not fashion. And so there's in this world of the coronavirus pandemic, it's like Lowe's Home Improvement Store is partnered with Fashion Week. So yeah, I think it's fantastic. It looks great.
That's really interesting. And look at us just, you know, building our conversation off of each other. We legit didn't even plan that, but that went right in line with some of my goals over here. So other than desks and fashion and looking good on Zoom, what's going on your side, man?
All right. Well, so just to repeat for the listeners, my course is how chiropractors and other types of small business professionals can grow their in-person business by going out and doing lunch and learns. And so going out and doing a lunch and learn, I would go and talk to like 10, 20, 30 people, and I would be able to gauge, you know, how they're responding. I'd get people nodding their head saying, yeah, this sounds like a great idea. Yeah, I have been putting up with back pain, and it's time to figure out what's going on. And at the end of the talk, like my most successful one, I talked to 33 teachers, and 21 of them lined up to like schedule as new patients at the end. And so it's really fun doing these talks in person and just seeing the energy in the room kind of build and people get excited about coming to see me. Since the pandemic, that's kind of stopped. And so what I'm working on this week, a company reached out to me and they asked me to come in and do a virtual, not come in, but do a virtual lunch and learn for them. And I got to be honest, I'm just kind of cringing. I haven't actually hosted a live webinar yet. And so I've got a little obstacle in my mind to get over is how do I keep these people super engaged, and how can I still get that response at the end? In person, I know that what I say works, but it's hard to provide scarcity in the same way on a virtual lunch and learn. So that's my obstacle. I need to write this lady an email back and say, here are the talk ideas. One thing I have been talking to a lot of my patients that are at these larger corporations about how people make their Zoom calls interesting. And one good piece of advice was that they said polls, like just polling the audience at various points, can be really add a lot of engagement. So
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, at this point, I've certainly hosted a lot of live webinars, but early on when I was just getting started, like I was so scared of it just because it was so different. Now, I didn't have a lot of in-person presentation experience when I started webinars like you do at this point, because you've done tons of lunch and learns. I mean, you're trying to kind of accomplish a similar result just virtually now. So, I mean, I've got full confidence that you're going to do a great job. I wonder where that sense of nervousness is really coming from.
Oh man, it's just the distractions of the world. Like if I have a group of 30 people in the room, like they're not playing on the phone, and I do lots of things. Like I'll have somebody, I'll pick like a manager from the audience and bring them up to demonstrate them. So it's kind of like if you're at a comedian and they kind of pick on one person in the audience, like you are paying attention at that point because you're thinking like, oh God, am I next? So lots of interaction. I have people standing up, sitting down, and I have this fear that with the virtual that they're just going to be distracted away by Facebook, essentially.
Man, that makes sense. You've got to figure out ways to modify, because this world of Zoom is going to be around probably for a while. And just to give you an example, I mentioned an episode or two ago that I did that mastermind with Mike Michalowicz, and I think it was his first one that he did virtually. Okay. And he's often doing these masterminds in person, and he did this one virtually, and it went really smoothly. He clearly knew what he was doing, but he certainly had to modify some of his exercises based on what we were doing. If I could give you one example, one exercise we did was called fly on the wall. That's what he called it. I don't know if he made it up or what, but basically, if we were in person, one person, it's kind of one person's hot seat, and that person would kind of give us all their main problem in their business and what they're trying to do, and then they would just turn around and they wouldn't look at any of us, and they would just face the wall. They could still hear us, but they wouldn't be able to see us, and we wouldn't really be able to see them. And then we would kind of talk together and try to kind of together solve his problems, right? So we weren't in person. So in this case, that particular person just had to turn off their microphone and their camera so that he could still hear us talking, but we couldn't see or hear him at all. And then once we spent about 20 minutes talking about it as a group, he came back in and it's like, hey, what'd you think? What ideas did you get? Was that helpful? And so Mike Michalowicz just modified the same exercise, but for virtual, and it went really well.
Nice. All right.
Now, if it does go well, I mean, are you going to add like a little module to your course about doing virtual lunch and learns?
For sure. That's where the extra pressure is like, well, this is my first at bat. Can I make it work?
Well, I'm pulling for you, and I think, I'm knowing you, I think it's going to go well.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you for that vote of confidence.
Hopefully that's all you needed, man. So real quick, I want to talk a little bit about relaunching. This is certainly something that people struggle with because, I talk a lot about my evergreen funnel. People first get into your world. They go through ideally an evergreen funnel. But the question I get a lot is, hey, what do you do with people that go through the funnel, they don't buy and they don't unsubscribe? What do we do with them then? And a lot of people just kind of let them exist on their email list, or maybe they do it like a big live launch once or twice a year. And I don't do either of those things. I have a very dialed in process to basically relaunch to a quarter of my list every single month. And I call that relaunch magic. And it's actually a kind of a master class that I'm going to be going over with the members of Next Level Courses here in about 40 minutes from right now. I'm super excited about that. I finished up the slides and the presentation, the information yesterday. So that's coming up shortly in my world. And I also wanted to give podcast listeners who are not a member of Next Level Courses just kind of a glimpse of one of many things available inside of there.
Sounds good. Yeah. Looking forward. I probably won't make the live one, but I'm looking forward to watching the replay.
Cool. And then moving ahead, this episode's going to be a lot about memberships because, speaking of Next Level Courses, there is a lady in Next Level Courses. Her name is Dr. Marnie Ginsberg. and she's been in there for about a month, and she came on one of the live Q&As, and I started digging into her and her story, and I was just blown away by the success she's had. I'm like, how can I help you? And it turns out she is struggling with a couple little things, but for the most part, she is dialed in, and she has a membership site where she helps teachers to help their younger students to read better, more proficiently, faster. Apparently, I didn't even know this. There's a problem with elementary age kids not learning to read quick enough, and that's what she helps. And we get into kind of why that's a problem and how she's helping people. And she's got over 2,500 active members at about, I think she said it was $29 a month they're paying. She's been uber successful, and she's really serving people with this membership. And I've talked a lot about like courses versus membership on the podcast, and so this is a really good perspective of a successful membership. So that just kind of sets the stage for this. And because of her success, hearing about this, like I invited her to come on the podcast. So that's the interview we're about to hear. Any initial thoughts? Like, do you have thoughts like courses versus membership? Initial thoughts at all?
I mean, I think they're both great things, and let's talk about it on the back end. But I think that ideally, people should be aiming to have both.
That is not a bad way to go. Yeah, we'll talk about it in more detail on the back end. So let's go ahead and play the full conversation with Dr. Marnie Ginsberg right now. Hi, Marnie. Welcome to the show.
Good to be here. Thank you, John.
Yeah, man, it's such a pleasure to have you on. For the sake of the audience, why don't we start by you telling us like who you are and more specifically who it is that you're helping right now and how you're helping them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I am a wife and mom in the Madison, Wisconsin area. I've been here for about almost 9 years, and my professional mission is to help classroom teachers learn how to teach anyone how to read, whether they are working with beginning readers or struggling readers. And I've been doing that recently through Reading Simplified and a membership we call the Reading Simplified Academy. And we're actually helping quite a lot more people recently because of COVID. So we've been helping people figure out how to switch to online teaching, and they're even more desperate to find solutions because the teaching of reading in most English-speaking countries is very convoluted, and we've been misled actually in a lot of places. So a lot of teachers are like I was at one point, just not aware of how to teach reading and confused. So we're trying to streamline that and at the same time get students to have better reading achievement.
So you said the professional mission, it's help classroom teachers to finish that for me. I'm writing it down.
To know how to teach anyone how to read, whether beginning or struggling readers.
Now, how did you identify that this was a problem for classroom teachers?
It started with my own experience, and then I talked with others, and then I read widely, and now we even have survey data to show that what I experienced in the 90s as a middle school teacher was not unique. I was teaching 6th grade students. My students on average were reading at the 4th grade level. I realized that they didn't know how to recognize how to read words very well, and I didn't know how to teach them. I had a master's, I'd paid attention in my classes, but I didn't know how to solve that problem. And so I looked into I just spent weeks and months in the libraries and the bookstores trying to find solutions to that. And you get a lot of conflicting advice. There are debates, endless debates, they call them the reading wars, about how to teach reading. And they're very different in, approaches to how to teach reading. So it was confusing for me. And I finally found something that worked. I helped some kids in my class just sort of before school or after school who initially could not even read at the 1st grade level. Like they couldn't read hop on pop. And so I did some of these activities with them. They grew quite a lot, like we're reading at the 3rd grade reading level after several months. And so that got me really intrigued. And I've been kind of obsessed with this. How do we teach anyone how to learn to read, particularly those who are struggling, ever since. And so that took me on a path. Should I keep going on how I got from there to 2020 or?
Well, let's get back to that. Cause
okay.
let me, I'm very fascinated by this because, well, for a lot of reasons. And I want to give the audience some perspective here in just a second about just how many people you're helping right now. Cause that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, because this is a business that's not small. Like you are doing significant work here and you have a lot of people in your membership. But for me personally, like my oldest daughter just turned 5 and she's not reading yet. She's about to start kindergarten. And so when we met, I'm like, this, I wonder if this is going to be an issue for my daughter. And I wonder if like her kindergarten teacher is prepared for this. So it sounds like at the end of the day, like your primary demographic of your help is the teacher. So if I discover, like 6 months into kindergarten, whatever, my daughter is having an issue with this, like could I come to you or is it more for the teacher to need to come to you?
Right. We actually have probably about a quarter of our members, and probably the audience as well, are parents and grandparents. We have a lot of grandparents recently because of COVID. So I tailor the marketing to the teacher, but the resources, the activities, they work very well for the individual parent or grandparent too, if they're willing to learn a system. What we teach at Reading Simplified is a way of thinking about how to teach reading, to know what questions to ask, and then to use just a handful of activities. And that helps streamline the process, but it's not a type of program where it's like, if you're 5 on page, open up your book on page 1 on Monday and do page 1. On Tuesday, do page 2. So there is learning involved for the parent or the grandparent, or mostly, of course, the classroom teachers to learn the system. But it's a lot easier than all the other programs. Most programs just throw so many activities at you that you can be so easily overwhelmed, and the classroom teacher doesn't know which activities to choose. So that's where we're streamlining the process. And so I do think it could be helpful for the individual parent, but we really want those parents then maybe to be the advocate. Oh, it worked for my kid. Hey, teacher, did you know this is an easier path for your class? Because the main, those right now in the US, about 65% of children are not reading proficiently. If at the 4th grade level, that's one place where we can take a national measure. So we know it's a systematic problem. And for our kids who are low income or who are not white, the rates are even far worse. So it's a real issue for us as a country. And that's why I'm so pretty passionate about it.
Yeah. So you've identified this problem, and the problem still exists today, but like, why is this such a problem?
Yeah, it's very perplexing, and it's maddening that it's persisting, because we actually have quite a lot of reading research that shows that what we should do to serve our students. And we've been teaching teachers in many university settings, certainly not all, but many, we've been teaching them approaches that are contrary to the science. And so this is where that reading wars thing that I alluded to earlier comes up. And so I think that in the midst of fighting, which almost becomes partisan, just like Republican and Democrat, it's harder to hear truth, and it's harder to get the truth out. And so that's where we've been kind of spiraling for the last couple decades, actually. There are some bright stars recently that seems like that shows that maybe some more of the science is getting into the hands of classroom teachers, but it is slow going, because a lot of the teachers were like I was equipped to learn a lot of different things about how to teach, but I wasn't equipped to learn how to teach kids how to read the words. And I was actually told some things that we now know are not true. And that's just a really hard belief to throw away. So that is why I think that's one of the main reasons. Of course, there are a lot of other challenges that our teachers and our schools and our families face, particularly now more than ever with COVID. But this is a systemic problem that goes back decades. And I think that if we were to share some of the best practices that we know from the science, I think we'd have a lot different data. In fact, research shows that when researchers go in, give good practice to children who are struggling, that the rate of difficulty could go down to as little as 5%, 3%. Some studies have shown that. So when we're looking at 65%, you can see there's a gap.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I could summarize what you're saying, the main problem is it sounds like it's It's just that not all the teachers are, in your opinion, teaching it the right way. And there is a lot of disagreement on what that right way is. And when you say that, like, it resonates with me as far as piano goes, because I don't know about you, but like, how many people do you know that have taken piano lessons but don't actually know how to play? You're raising your hand. Like, do you know how to play?
I do, but I mean, I capped out at the 6th grade level because I never, it was not really much fun.
Right. Well, there's so many people that have taken piano lessons and can't do anything on the piano today. There's a piano, like, hey, you used to play, like, go play something, can't do a single thing. And in my opinion, that's because of the information, the way it's being taught, and the way it's being taught primarily to kids. And when you go to in-person piano lessons, it works for a small percentage of people. Right. And so probably the methods of teaching to read, like, it probably works for a small percentage of people. But I think what I'm hearing is that for most people, a different way is better. And it's exactly the same with piano, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's a fair comparison.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're apt there.
Goodness, we gotta fight this together, Marnie. And you are. I mean, that's what you're trying to do with readingsimplified.com and Reading Simplified Academy. And so Reading Simplified Academy is a membership site. People pay monthly. I guess you probably have some yearly options as well.
That's right.
About how many active members do you have?
We're past 2,500 right now.
2,500 members. About how much does it cost to join?
It's $29 a month, or for an annual rate of $247 the first year, or $147 this following year. So we kind of reward those who stick around.
Okay. And this is, would you, if I said, hey, Marnie, do you have an online course? Would you say yes, or would you say no, I have a membership?
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing. I do have an online course because the membership's first most important objective is to get the teachers and the few parents and grandparents to go through a course that's very, very guided and sequential. And then along the way, they receive support from us, particularly through a discussion board with me and other reading coaches in there. And then when they're finished with that main course, then we have additional courses. So if they want to go deeper, they can stay as members and get deeper understanding of how to teach anyone how to read. But it's a course, the course format is a really important part of it. It's not just pick around based on your preference. I'm trying to really guide people to take a step-by-step approach to learn this system, because it's only 8 to 10 hours, which is, I say only because most other programs, if you were to learn a new reading program, you would go for at least a week of in-person training, and then you would still have a lot of questions, and you wouldn't know how to do it with your students the next Monday. So we have, the course is fairly economical in terms of time as well. And that's really important because a lot of these teachers were like I didn't go back to school to learn how to teach reading. I just did it on my own time. And I'd love to get to the place where our universities are more systematically teaching effective reading practices. But in the meantime, we have a lot of folks in the field that need to learn something yesterday.
So the courses that you offer, is that just included in the monthly membership, or is that a separate fee?
It's all together. So the membership, it includes the course, additional courses, lots of student resources that they can download, and then also that online support.
So you basically have one offering. You're trying to get as many people as possible to sign up for this, what's essentially a monthly membership.
Right.
Why did you go that route over just charging for the courses one time?
Well, there are a couple different reasons. One of the reasons was when in my development as an online business person, I didn't come to this to be a business person. This is secondary motivation to get the word out.
Well, you're doing very well for that being the case.
Thank you. Well, it's because of people like you and a lot of people that have helped me along the way. So I found you through Pat Flynn, and I knew what you were saying was exactly what I needed. So that's when I started following you. Well, several years ago, I was listening to another Pat Flynn podcasts, and I found the Flip Lifestyle because those were two teachers on Shane and Jocelyn Sams. They were talking about their education business. So I was following them early on in my development to put all these pieces together, the WordPress plugins, all the stuff that you need. And they made their transition to memberships at the same time that I was thinking about course membership back and forth. And so that was one thing, just as a young developing business person, that kind of spurred that on. But also I knew that the gist of what we teach at Reading Simplified is fairly simple, and it doesn't take a lot of time. Like I said, it's only a handful of activities, but if you want to become a master at it, it's not going to be just 8 hours. You're going to work with the 5 kids that you have this year that struggle. Well, somebody next year is going to look a little different. And so we wanted to provide a community that's ongoing for those who wanted to go deeper. And that was one of the reasons that I thought the membership was a better fit. And that's what we have seen. Those that go through the course, learn it, many of them are remaining because they want, of course, ongoing training, but answers to tricky problems when they encounter them.
So what somebody gets when they sign up is access to all the courses that you have, and then the community as well. What else? Any other interactive components or anything?
Well, the main course that I was mentioning to you is actually it's drip course, so they can't go to Unit 2 till they've done Unit 1. They have to watch the video, and in most units there's a quiz, so they get a little feedback that way. Mm-hmm. And then we also have a cyclical learning rhythm that we encourage them to take advantage of. So they learn an activity. One of our most famous activities is called Switch It. And so they learn that through the videos. Then they try it with at least one child, and then they report about it in the Teacher's Lounge. That's our term for our online discussion board. And then they go back through the cycle, learn about the next activity, add that into their repertoire. So they're now doing Switch It and Read It, the second activity. They reflect upon it in the Teacher's Lounge. So we see a lot of people going through the course and going through that reflection process. And that is super fun for me and my reading coaches. But I think it's an important part of how they learn. And then along the way, as they go through more and more units, they get more and more resources. So we have over 1,000 pages of differentiated kindergarten through 5th grade reading materials that align directly with the activities. So when they're ready to figure out how to handle those tricky long vowels, then they get to this activity we call Sort It. They learn about Sort It, and they also get tons of Sort It pages and text to read that align with the particular level they're in. And that is a really big part of that course, so that we don't want to give them that information before they're ready for it. Mm-hmm. And then we have a Facebook group. We have, bonus events, kind of social things. I have just fairly recently have added on a community manager, and she'll do just a hangout on Facebook with people. And she also does a welcome tour monthly. So we have some other things that aren't really that we're just filling out to make it a community that's dynamic and engaged. But the core really is the main course, additional trainings, student resources, and then a discussion forum.
Yeah, and that's great that you have the community manager now, and it sounds like she's going live. Is it a she?
Yeah.
Okay, she's going live in there. But you're a member of one of my programs, Next Level Courses, and as you know, I do basically group coaching once a week inside of there. So have you thought about adding something like that with either yourself or somebody else being the leader of that?
Right, definitely. When you said you were doing this weekly, I started thinking, oh, maybe I should do that. When I got started, there wasn't enough interest or availability to do that. And so these are busy teachers. And so now we definitely have a cohort that's large enough that people would show up. But I do occasional FAQ nights, and those are generally well received, but they haven't been there. I just need probably to implement a system where it's a little more reliable. What's tricky for me as a family person, I have 3 girls. 2 now just went to college, which is very strange. One's a freshman, one's a sophomore. But teachers don't really need this kind of training during the day. They need it at night. And I already do a weekly Facebook Live to the public So I've been trying to think, do I want to add another weekly thing, or a Saturday morning? So yeah, I love what you're doing. And I definitely think that's a very great way to get engagement. So I've been toying around with it, but I haven't landed yet.
Yeah, with online courses and memberships where a lot of the content is pre-recorded or pre-written down. I know you have more than just videos. There you miss out on some of that one-on-one engagement, personal feedback, and I'm always looking for ways to make our programs as good as possible. As good as close to the ideal world where like I go fly out to your house and work with you one-on-one, where that's not practical. Well, how can we take some of those elements and ensure your success as much as possible? But for you, I mean, a $29 a month membership is not very expensive. And I think if you were to add that, you could maybe have another tier, like a higher paying tier for,
I've tried to keep it deliberately low because a lot of teachers are paying out of pocket. Some of them do get their administration to pay for it, but the majority do pay for it out of pocket. And teachers in America, as you know, don't in general get paid very well. I
totally get it. So you mentioned the discussion board, and then you also talked about a Facebook group. Those are two different things?
Yeah, exactly. I've been challenged on that. The discussion board it has its virtues of being threaded and searchable, and it directly relates to the content that the teacher's going through at that given time. Like Switch It, they write in the Switch It board, and so that organization seems to be very helpful. But the dynamic nature of Facebook is also helpful, and so we have kind of two different communities, and different people are in the different communities depending on what's interesting to them. So I have worried that it's like splitting the focus, but we're at that size now where I feel like it's a virtue because people are already on Facebook. Yeah. I'm actually thinking about adding out a mobile app so it's a little easier to do on the phone, but that's a big rigmarole. So I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, that's a whole different discussion. So I kind of like to some extent that you have the community in two places, because there are advantages to having, and I've been talking about this on the podcast lately about communities, Facebook groups versus not Facebook groups, but there's advantages to Facebook groups, but there's certainly advantages to not having a Facebook group. And so if I ever do move like my piano group or the Next Level Courses group, like off of Facebook, I feel like we kind of need both, because that way we can serve the different types of people. What software are you using to, like, all right, where's your course? Like what software are you using for your course, and what are you using for the discussion board?
We are on a WordPress site. We use LearnDash for the course content and Buddy Boss for the discussion board.
So by doing those both as WordPress plugins, are they basically the same place for the end user?
Oh yeah. It doesn't look any different for the user. It's just different tabs at the top of the website.
Okay. I've definitely had a few people come on the podcast that say they're using LearnDash and do like it. Most people are using platforms that are not WordPress, like a Thinkific or Teachable. Are you thinking about moving to something like that? Or you feel
I did think about it. Yeah, I did think about it about 2 years ago because we had trouble with the technology. I was using BB Press, which was open source, and I didn't know where to go for my tech problems. And, but all those other sites at the time when I was looking into it, they didn't really have a forum option that was integrated with the course. Maybe they have it now. But now we have something that's really smoothly running, and every now and then a plugin breaks or whatever, but generally it runs really well. And so I don't want to go back and add a monthly bill. But that was the reason that I opted away from that at maybe it was 2 years ago.
Okay. What about?
Yeah, we certainly have moved over the years.
Sure, as most people at your level do, and we're always wondering if we're in the best place and always seeing if there's a brighter, shinier thing out there. I'm certainly in that camp. Now, what about retention? Because you have far more experience at running a large membership than I do, and one of the biggest problems I see from the outside is you want to get people in and then stay in as long as possible. How is your retention, and what are you doing to keep people around as long as possible?
Sure. Well, I'm still learning in that area because I think that I don't have the greatest tracking tools for it. I'm using ThriveCart as the sales cart, and the information that it gives me, I'm not sure that it's the fullest amount of information that I would need. And then also I have people buying through Stripe or PayPal, so I can look at the Stripe analytics and see that. So we lose about a quarter within 2 months, the people that are choosing the monthly option. Obviously not the yearly. Mostly we're just able to track the data from the monthly. But in my ThriveCart, it tells me I'm at 5% churn, which means, but that's it. When you're at this size, that's a big number. So I have to, if I'm going to lose 100 people a month, I have to bring more than 100 in to stay steady, right?
Right.
So I just recently hired a consultant, and engagement is our number one issue right now, to look at what are we doing and what are we not doing, and trying to think about ways of using email engagement, maybe a video message engagement, more gamification. I tried to do that when I first got started and I just didn't pull it off. And I think that's a really important piece. Maybe a little bit more a mindset thing, coaching as they go through the course, or maybe just a written or verbal awards. Yeah, you did it. I'm so excited. You're a third of the way there, and that type of thing. But the teachers, and when people engage in the Teachers Lounge, they get quick feedback. We respond within 24 hours. So those folks are pretty engaged. It's just the folks that maybe are too busy to be on the Teachers Lounge, or got stuck, on their fourth video. I need to figure out systems to make that better, so that we get more people to go through the course, not just as a business owner to be ensuring that we grow, but that I ensure that these people who showed interest are really learning the system, because I know that it'll serve other children, but not if they just do 3 lessons.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, this is on the forefront of my mind. One, because I have this outlet and I want to always try to share the most, the best advice I possibly can. And I don't have a ton of experience with memberships, but the second thing is that I do want to get into more and more memberships. Next Level Courses is essentially a membership.
Yeah.
And I think there could be room for that in one way, shape, or form with my piano business as well. And so I've been consuming a lot of information, and, I don't know if you're probably familiar that I use the app called Bonjoro to kind of thank my customers.
Yes.
And I know when I had the creator of Bonjoro on the podcast a while back, he said one way that their customers are using it, and even they use it themselves, is with to reduce churn, maybe after 3 months. And you specifically said a video message, I think that's the type of thing you're talking about.
Right.
The other interesting thing I heard recently from Stu McLaren, who's a big membership guy, is he was like, think about Netflix, right? Think about, okay, let me just give you an example of a very popular Netflix show, Stranger Things. Have you ever seen Stranger Things?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. So
we were fixed to our screen.
Yeah. So one way they get you to watch the next episode is they'll close a loop within an episode, and then at the very end, they'll open a new loop. Right. It's like, oh gosh, and that's how binge watching ends up happening. But what he suggested, Stu McLaren, is that you can take that, psychological principle and always be teasing something for the next month and the next month. Right. Always be opening a new loop that they have to stick around another month for.
So true.
Around. So I haven't really implemented that yet. But I think it's, you take Next Level Courses, for example. I do a new masterclass each month. So, I guess that's one way that I'm opening a loop. It's like, hey, if you stick around for another month, you're going to get, my relaunch system or my testimonial system, and so on. And so I'm sure you're doing things like that, but keep that in mind that you could open a little more loops each month.
Well, actually you're uncovering my fundamental problem. I'm not very good with planning, which is why I've been asking you some of those questions, like how you're executing your days, because if you want to open a loop, you have to know what's going to be on the docket in 30 days. Yeah. So I'm excited to do that. I'm moving that way. I'm going to be hiring someone to help me with orchestrating content. But we do have a new, I did kind of stumble into this. We have a new online game that teachers can use with their students that we just developed because of COVID, because everyone's using things virtually. So I've been as that's getting developed, I've been showing people this is what you're going to have when you're a member. So hopefully that's part of that open loop example, but I haven't historically done that systematically. I really like that idea though.
Excellent. Awesome. Okay. So sticking with this, like how to run a successful membership theme, like, are you planning on limiting the numbers in any way? Because that's one question I have in my mind is like, can these things get too big?
Yeah. Certainly I'm not there yet. We just hired, so I have the community manager I talked to you about. I have a content manager who's the lead of that discussion board that I was telling you about. So she's ultimately responsible. Buck stops there with her for making sure everybody gets help. And we've just added in 3 new people who went through our course and who were already very active and gave smart feedback. We're adding them in as other coaches. So that's just logistically, like serving the community is one of our first concerns. Because of getting your feedback, I'm going to be adding some more ads. And I know based on the Facebook ads that have been fairly successful, that these probably in Google ads and YouTube, they will probably be successful. So we could almost double or at least halve again the membership pretty quickly. So I'm more worried about service. I haven't gotten to the point where it's too crowded. So I think, in the membership world, they talk about how, I don't remember the statistics, but I think it's only like 5% are highly engaged. Mm-hmm. So you have to get to a pretty high number before those 5% are crowding everything out, right? So for the 2,500 that I have, we certainly don't have thousands of people in the teacher's lounge every day. And so it's not too busy. So I'm not too worried about the number getting too big. I'm more worried about making sure that we can manage customer service and member service to a really strong level.
Very cool. All right. Well, I told you we would. Let's get back to kind of the story. All right. Let's kind of pick back up where we were, and then what was going on with your life and kind of the steps that all led up to you deciding to create Reading Simplified.
Yeah, I certainly did not want to do this when I was younger. But I went into teaching because I'm idealistic. I think I'm going to make a difference. And when I found out that I couldn't make a difference, I was really ticked off. And then when I found something that did make a difference, I tried to tell people around me and I tried to make an impact, but it actually didn't have much of an impact initially. I was tutoring. After I got all excited about this, what I had discovered, and that a system was working with these kids that I worked with before and after school, then I decided to quit the public school teaching at that time and opened a tutoring practice so I could really zero in on it, and I got really good at it. We were getting your typical student to grade level in 12 hours of tutoring instruction. A lot of programs will tell you it's going to take 2 or 3 years. Now, of course, not everyone gets to grade level that quickly, but that was on average. And I was really excited. But then the teachers, the child would be reading really well, and the teachers would be giving feedback to the child in the classroom. Well, no, don't do that. Don't look at all the letters. Don't try to sound it out. Look at the picture, make a guess, reread it. A lot of feedback that was directly contradicting what I was teaching the child. So that was like a little quite frustrating. And it made me think, oh, we need to have more research on this. This just must be under research. So I went to the University of North Carolina, where I was living at the time, to get my doctorate and get also a literacy specialist license. Along the way, I realized, oh, we actually do know that that's not smart to tell children who are 5, 6, 7 to look at the picture. But it's just not in the hands of the teachers because we've been communicating about it incorrectly. So that was an eye opener. It's really there's certainly things we can continue to learn about the science of reading, but it's mostly a dissemination issue. And then I had the really unusual opportunity to be the developer of a reading intervention for kindergarten and first grade struggling students. It was actually for their classroom teachers. It was part of a federally funded grant. A professor that I was working for got all this money, but she didn't want to create the program. I got it. I said, I do want to create the program. And I led that development, and we saw children in multiple states all over the US, and we watched the teachers implement the program on webcam. And so that was starting around 2005 after I finished my doctorate, or actually when I was still getting the end of my doctorate. And then I did that for about 7 years. So that was really exciting to be a part of that research project, see results for these struggling readers in these low income communities, and also get to watch the teachers so I could see what was working and what was a bit of a struggle. And the researchers published many times on this program. It's called the Targeted Reading Intervention, and it keeps getting good effects, making a difference for the struggling readers in those classrooms. But I wasn't really seeing it do anything outside of those communities. Like, articles get written and sometimes nothing happens. In fact, that's more likely than not in the field of reading, because like I said, there's this divide in what people believe in the university setting. So then my husband got a job transfer, and we moved, and it seemed like a great time to think about something new. And that's when I got this idea, well, maybe I'll try more of a grassroots dissemination project. And online business was getting hot at that time. I read Michael Hyatt's platform, and that was like, oh, okay. But I had to, for the first time, even get a Facebook profile, because I didn't want to be on Facebook. I wasn't historically very good at public speaking. All of this was like not my comfort zone. I hated tech. So it's, that was 2013, I think, when I got that idea. And it took a while before it was anything that was useful. There were other turns along the way, but I don't want to go down too many rabbit holes. But basically that's, I keep having the opportunity to see the program, these ideas make a difference. But then when there's weaknesses or issues, particularly in that university setting, when I saw certain things trip teachers up, then I adjusted it. And that's what led me to create a variation on what I had created before. And we call it Reading Simplified.
So when was it that you actually, let's say, made your first sale? And what was that like?
Yeah, November 2016.
Okay.
Well, I think maybe in the fall, but that was just like 1 or 2 people. But I had an event in November, 5-day challenge, and I got just under 30 members. And that was a big breakthrough for us. 2015, I was working on how to do a blog. 2013 to 2015, I was creating the reading program.
So
all the materials, all the videos for kids.
What was going on inside? Like when you made those first 25, 30 sales, you actually had people paying you money for your own platform, essentially, for the first time with this online program.
I was so thrilled, and I was so relieved because it had been a long road. All the tech was a big burden for me. Trying to persuade people to buy from me, that was not my comfort zone. All these things, it was huge. But these folks had been on my list for most of them for over a year. And I'd been teaching them and getting feedback from them. When your list is smaller, you get more feedback if you ask for it. And so I didn't feel as scary selling to them, because I knew that they needed it. They'd made it clear. But it was so exciting. And then it was like, okay, now I've got to deliver. I didn't even have the whole course fleshed out. So I was trying to finish that course in November, December, January, stay ahead of the person that was at the furthest, in the progression. And I held a few people up. But then the next year was kind of like making sure I'm serving my members, developing my systems and routines, as you're kind of asking, like, a membership is not an easy thing. You have to figure out, what are you going to do? What are you going to provide? And then I also at the same time was trying to figure out, how do I develop a sales system? And that was another challenging or scary thing, because we had been doing this for a while, and I wasn't making money for quite a long time. So we had to figure out, my husband and I said, we got to make money by the fall of 2017, or I'm going to go get a job somewhere, a job.
Well, it's interesting hearing this part of the story, because it's so different than my experience. And like in a good,
you were.
No. That's not what I mean. I mean, just like with a sense of passion and purpose behind what you're doing, because my main motivation was like passive income. Like, I was all about quitting my job, and I know like money is a motivator for almost everybody, but for you, like, you had been working in this field for over a decade, like getting PhDs and certifications, and like your passion was helping kids to read and read sooner, and helping teachers to help the kids to be able to do that. Your passion had been that long before you launched your membership. For me, like piano just happened to be like the thing that worked for me. Right. And
That's
then
awesome.
My passion for that grew with the company, and it didn't exist for 12 years before I launched it like you.
Wow.
So I think that's, one of the reasons that you've been so successful with this is because there was such a story leading up to the creation of the business and the launch of the course and so on. You're obviously very successful now.
Well, there's so much persistence if you don't have all the, if I was on my own, I mean, a lot of courses and podcasts over the years, but it feels lonely. And so you have to have persistence. But I think that's a great point that you're making, because passion doesn't necessarily have to precede the project. The project, in your case, developed the passion. And so that's really helpful, because some people might hear my story and say, well, I haven't been doing something for 20 years that I can't stop thinking about, which is really my case. But it doesn't have to be that. If you have an area of expertise that other people can benefit from, then you can probably get pretty passionate about it when they tell you, this is helping me and here's my money. So.
Yeah. And there's so many ways to succeed like this. So I'm glad we discovered that significant difference about us, but yet we both are very passionate about the topic today. I promise I'm not going to just continue to compare like piano to reading, but this is the last one. But as we're talking, I'm thinking, okay, well, what do you say to the people that's like, well, Marnie, like, I get what you're trying to do, but at the end of the day, like, people are going to figure out how to read eventually. Like, there's not that many adults that don't know how to read today. And if we could just do that last piano comparison, you can't say the same thing about piano. If we just neglect piano learning, it's not like people are just going to figure out how to learn piano. But is that the case with reading? What do you say to those people?
I don't have the numbers at the tip of my tongue, but I think there's probably about 80 million adult Americans who are weak in reading, maybe not illiterate. See, what we're doing in this country is getting kids and then adults to be good at reading at like a third grader or a fifth grader. But do we want people at that reading level to be taking medications or to reading their health policies or deciding who to vote for president? So we have yes, most people in our school system do learn how to read a certain number of words to appear to be adequate, but we have a long way to go before we really reach even 95% literacy rates. And it's not because of the individual. It's because, like I said, we see research that shows that pretty much almost everyone could read up to their intellectual potential, but we're not providing that. And so it's not, you're right. It's not all or nothing like piano, maybe for some people, but it's a tremendous burden for so many children going through schools. There's a lot of associated social and emotional challenges that kids get because they are frustrated readers, and then they don't become very good spellers, and then they don't become very good writers. So there's all these negative snowballs that come out of not starting strong. You're not going to want to read about science if it's a struggle just to recognize the words. So we're losing so much potential because most of our students aren't choosing to read because it's such hard work.
Got it. So you have 2,500 active members, but you've obviously had probably significantly more than that.
About 4,200.
Okay, great. So can you feel the impact of your work? Like, that's one of the big things that I enjoy about my work now is just the impact and actually being able to hear from people on the other side what my work has been able to do for them in their lives. Like, can you share one or two stories from the people that you've been able to impact with this work?
Right. It's super exciting. And I get that in sometimes little snippets here and then in emails, or certainly, like I said, that Teachers Lounge, the discussion board, we regularly get just, oh, this was such a breakthrough for my child or this student or my class. I can think of one teacher who's a really strong example. She was teaching first grade English language learners in the Phoenix area. And she had a program to teach reading that should be most people would consider it to be a strong program, and she was an excellent teacher. She is an excellent teacher, but she found some of the tweaks that we present in Reading Simplified, and it made all the difference for her. She said in 18 years of teaching, the first year she tried our approach was the first year she had 100% of her kids reading at the end of first grade, whereas every year there's a couple kids, you're like, oh, well, I did my best, but they're going to go on to second grade. And the second year she was trying Reading Simplified, she had some kids reading chapter books in like October, which is a pretty big accomplishment for a a classroom of English language learners in the second month of school here in the US. So she is a real bright light, but we get them all the time through like the Facebook group. We have a very active Facebook page where that's a main marketing engine. So we get feedback there. And sometimes I'm also doing the video testimonials. When they write to me and they say something great, I say, hey, would you be willing to get on the camera and the Zoom with me and tell me more? So I think about one mom, I think she's in Canada, who had a son that was autistic, and she's also a classroom teacher. And she got into the Reading Simplified Academy because she was thinking about it both for her own child and for her class. And she said, you know, she also went to school and had all these courses and didn't know how to teach reading. And she realized it. And then she worked with her son, who was 5 years old, over the summer before he was going to school, or actually before he was going to I can't remember if it was before he was starting kindergarten or first grade, but she said she taught him to read, and he was reading upper first grade books just with the summer with that. And she said, you know, as the mother of a child with autism, I have a lot of concerns for what it's going to be like for him in school, but reading is not one of them. So that just kind of chokes me up still, but it's my main, mission is to get the classroom teacher to make a big impact. And whether they're the beginning reader or a struggling reader, a middle school student, high school student, they are still struggling with this. We got to go back to the core and resolve that. But yeah, that's now, of course, what keeps me going, because we know something that we're doing is working, because we're getting back the feedback from, and I heard from a woman at the Cook Islands. I had to look it up. It's like a really nice vacation place. She said that her middle school students, they grew 5 years, I think it was, over 17 weeks. So it was basically, no, it was almost 5 years. It was over 4 years of reading growth in 17 weeks. I told her that's like a year growth every month. When you're a middle school reader and you're behind it, you have a long way to go. So that's why those numbers can happen. But anyway, yeah, it's a great part of my job. And also I'm always feeding that back to the team. And we try to, encourage one another that way. Like, all this work you're doing, it's making a difference.
Are you familiar with Story Brand by Donald Miller?
Yes, but I haven't executed on it.
But you're familiar with the core, like the number one takeaway that I've gotten out of that book is just like within your story, like you want to position yourself as the guide in the story, and you want your customer to be the hero. Right. And so I think like these success stories and hearing about the impact you're having on other people's lives are incredible. Like that, like you just said, like that's probably my number one motivator today. I mean, just 2 days ago, I got an email from somebody, and this might've been one of the best emails I've ever received. He was like, "Hey, Jacques, not sure if you knew who I am or remember me, but I signed up for your course 2 years ago and never touched a piano, didn't know what middle C was before then. And next week, I'm releasing my first album."
Oh my gosh.
And he sent me a link to it, and it was just pure piano. It was just a piano album, and it was phenomenal. It was so good. And so, as a human, like naturally I want to take like all the credit for that, like, yes. All right. Look what I did. But that's not the case at all. Like, okay, I put a course out there and he went through the course, and I'm sure there was a lot of other influences in the past 2 years other than my course. He probably just got started with it. But I'm trying to figure out the best way to take stories like that and then also use those for marketing too, but without saying, hey, look, here's how great Jacques is. Here's how great Piano in 21 Days is, because at the end of the day, Ken, like 99.99999% of the credit goes to him. Right. So have you found that sometimes it can be hard to figure out like how to use stories like that and not put yourself as the hero?
I think it's a little easier with classroom teaching. Or maybe it's kind of similar. I don't know. I often just say, look at what Jennifer did. I just created an ad yesterday. Look at what Jennifer did. She did this and she's amazed. Isn't that awesome? Don't you want what she has? And this is the system that she had to get her to that. So, back to kind of my idea about when I was getting the first days of my doctorate, I thought that we were going to do more research, but really it's about dissemination. That's what the gift that you gave this young guy or whatever his age is, you gave him some information at the right time, at the right place and how do you get that idea out there? That's what's so awesome about online courses. We're just reaching people, like I said, in the Cook Islands and Phoenix and Canada, and
yeah.
it's just,
and a lot of times you don't realize the impact that you're having. Like I made a new YouTube video. I sent it out to my entire list and he replied to that. If I never made that YouTube video, maybe I would have never heard that story.
Yeah. And probably we don't know a lot of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause with online courses, like, you just don't know everybody. If you're an in-person teacher, then you actually have a relationship with each one of your students. But as you know, online courses, memberships, they scale so much better, and we don't necessarily need to know about all the impact we're having. But I bet that you are making far more of an impact than even you realize because of this medium.
Yeah, it's quite weird. Sometimes people will get on and a video with me and then they'll be like, oh, I'm nervous because like I'm famous. I'm not famous, honey. You think I am, but I'm not. But I'm not anybody to be intimidated by.
Yeah.
But,
isn't that
so
so funny?
You don't know how you just don't know your impact, right?
Yeah, for sure. So you've mentioned like Facebook ads a couple of times. You've talked a little bit about marketing. So, as you know, I like to simplify things, and we've got kind of traffic, and then traffic flows into a funnel, which then flows into, in your case, your membership. So you've got your membership dialed in, and I would imagine that you've got a pretty good system for both traffic and your funnel. So I kind of want to focus in on those two areas next. And we'll start with the traffic. Like, where are you mostly getting your traffic from?
Heavily Facebook.
Organic ads or both?
Both. I'm trying to diversify that, but we put a lot of energy into our page, and we have followed not perfectly, but to some extent, Rachel Miller's ideas from Moolah Marketing. I don't know if you run into her, but her idea is to find other posts or videos on Facebook that are already doing well and put them on your page along with your own stuff. So it gives a little juice to your post. It's just the way that the Facebook algorithm works is if you just keep posting your stuff over and over again, it's going to bury them, as we all have probably experienced. So we put a lot of energy into that and post like right now we're just doing 3 posts a day, and one of them is a reading simplified content, and other stuff has been proven already in the Facebook realm. And so that's an organic effort that we do. And then we also put a lot of money into Facebook ads. So I've done different things, but do, direct to a blog post where there's a content upgrade, then get a lead magnet. We also have done a lot for webinars, both live and evergreen, which is why I started to follow you, is because you had a very similar system and you were seeing ways in which you wanted to improve it, and I'm going to follow suit in that. But so the Facebook is 50%, and Google now is increasing, thankfully, but I haven't done a good job of that, and we're working more on SEO. And we have other platforms, but they're not really converting for us. So that's the traffic question, I think.
Yeah. So and
now my email list is strong enough that when I email them, I send them back to my blog.
Oh, cool. How big's your email list?
Over 70,000.
Amazing. What platform are you using for your email list?
ActiveCampaign.
Ooh, big fan.
Yeah.
Good choice. Okay. So as far as paid ads go, with my course, my most popular package is $497, and I can see in my dashboard, whether it's Facebook ads or Google ads or whatever, YouTube ads, like which package people are buying, and I can directly see what my ROI is. How do you do that with a membership? Like, how much are you willing to spend to gain a new member?
Well, we haven't had to go up to how much we would be willing to spend, because Facebook's pretty profitable for us. So I turn an ad off when the return on investment is about is getting to be 2 to 1, because I normally want 3 or 5 to 1. So we are estimating that the average member stays 10 months.
Okay.
And so it's about $250 is just my ballpark that we've been using for a while. And we're always spending far less than we're bringing in. So I'm generally not that worried about it.
Okay. So you've kind of done some rough numbers and established that an average customer is about worth $250. So you're willing to spend up to, it sounds like $125 to acquire a new customer.
I've never probably gone over like $80 per, unless an ad is like I'm testing an ad for a day or two or whatever, but I wouldn't do that. I could though. Yeah. Because that's still profitable, but I'm not so clear on that return on investment because it's not just a digital product. We have the back end of all the support staff. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't have that already dialed into like how much does it actually cost per member. And of course it varies so widely. Some people are going to be on the teacher's lounge every day and some people don't go at all. So that's why I keep it kind of, I want a pretty significant margin there.
Yeah, of course.
Probably $80 is probably the biggest, but I don't like it when I'm there.
Makes sense. There's plenty of other expenses in an online course business. I mean, you've obviously got a team. There's a lot of software. I mean, you're not spending as much on the online course software because you've got the WordPress plugins. Okay. So yeah, very interesting. So let's dive into the funnel part. Do you have just kind of one funnel or do you have a lot of different funnels going on?
I have a lot of different funnels and sometimes I forget about a funnel. So my main one is a webinar funnel. It's called 3 Activities a Day to Keep Reading Difficulties Away. And that was the one that we started live in 2017, July of 2017. I did it live for 2 or 3, probably almost 3 months, once a week, until we felt like it was really strong. And then we put it on Evergreen and we were using EverWebinar and had some of the issues that I've heard you mention as well. So now I'm going to adopt your approach. But so that is a webinar that we send people to directly from Facebook ads. We have it on a sidebar on all of our blog posts, and it's also the tag in the bottom of my emails. So it is a big way we like to get people in, not only because it sells and it's effective, but it's a great training ground for what they're going to get in the course. I'm actually giving away the 3 best activities and showing them how to do it and why they're so powerful. And it's really jam-packed content. And so a lot of people take that and they think that's all that they need, which is great. But if they go into the course, then they really have a good perspective on what they're going to learn as they get into that main course that I was mentioning. So we also have, we have a lot. One thing I think that's also worked was we have a lot of what has been called like content upgrades. So I have a lot of different lead magnets for a lot of different blog posts. And so most pages that people come to, there's some freebie that's related to that particular topic. And I get a lot of emails that way. So even if my traffic outside of Facebook isn't strong, if they hit my page and they read for a few seconds, we get a pretty high conversion rate. It varies based on, of course, the opt-in, but it's between 8 to 18% of people that land. If they read a little bit, they get an email. They give me their email. So that's something I'm still nurturing and watching. And then we have live events. The one that I love the most is called 5 a Day, Level Up Your Reader in 5 days. And it is a Facebook Live 5 day in a row challenge where I tell them to try this one activity I mentioned before called Switch It. So I say, try it and then watch me use it with a student, and across the 5 days, see how much the student has improved. And also teachers are in the Facebook group. That's just a pop-up group for that event. They're talking about how much of a difference it made. And what I'm not so good at is converting that immediately to sales. Like, it's a lower conversion rate, even though people are just so happy with it. It's a lower conversion rate than the webinar, at least in the short term. A lot of times people will tell us, well, I did this challenge and it's finally time for me to join. So it's definitely, it works really well to build up trust and goodwill. And I love doing it because so many people are impacted, but the webinar is just hard to beat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love the 5 day challenge idea. I actually took a note on a different page for like actions to be thought about later. Like, I think that could work really well for my piano business, because I have my 5 day like workbook that I always promote as my opt-in. But if I could like every month do a 5 day challenge and actually teach like on a Facebook Live, the first 5 lessons, like it's the first 5 lessons are probably the best 5 because there's so many quick wins I give people.
Exactly.
So many people are going to want to keep going for the rest of the course. So thanks for that idea. But yeah, webinars. Are you telling me that you're still on EverWebinar? Is that what I'm hearing?
I have the landing page set up, and I'm having a Vimeo problem, and I did another live event, and I took 2 kids to college, so you got to cut me some slack.
Yeah, I know we talked about a month ago about you possibly cutting that over to the more of what I'm doing.
We are. I've got it all ready. It could probably go very soon if I just can catch up to all the travel.
I'm looking forward to hearing the results, because I know most of your sales are coming from the webinar. So I know it can be scary to change something like that. I just got so fed up with hearing from people like Jacques. I can't believe you would have the fake chats up there. Like, I was thinking about buying, but I don't know about all that. And so I eventually cut it over and was pleasantly surprised that conversions actually went up. But what about,
I'm hoping for?
Yeah. What about, like, if that's the main way that you're selling, regardless of what software and system you're using, like, is there any sort of scarcity? Like, how are you actually getting people to pull the trigger on a $29 per month membership?
We do have fast acting bonuses.
Okay.
That are triggered. Each individual person's funnel is a Thrive Cart sales cart page that's unique to them, or not unique to them, but their browser will receive it, and then it's a 4-day, I think it's a 4-day time deadline. So it's kind of built in that it's unique to that person, at least their browser. And so so it's actually closing, but also in 4 days, and it will also give them additional digital goodies if they join that night of when they first signed up for the event.
Very cool. Well, you have 2,500 active members plus. You have funnels, you have traffic, you have a team. Are you struggling with anything? I mean, is there anything you're struggling with?
Yes. There's always got to be something. I said earlier, I'm not really good with planning. Systems aren't something that just come naturally to me. So that's why I was asking you the other day about what exactly are you doing every day? I have that leader that I told you about that's managing the membership, but I don't have anyone looking at all of my content. I need someone, all my people are great, but they're very, very part-time. And 3 of them are mothers who really don't have any more hours to give. So I'm looking to hire someone who's more of a leader that'll look over my whole content, that whole umbrella, and maybe even grow to become like an operator for me, so that I don't have to work so much. Or if things break, it's always with me, or, I'm the only one that knows that the header on the website should be taken down because it's the end of the sale or whatever. So someone to look over things will be such a blessing, I think. We're close.
Are you familiar with the framework of running a company called Traction? It's actually the name of a book. Have you read that?
Yes. And I have been toying around with that idea. And then Alex Sharfin also teaches that there's too much leverage with the integrator, and he's recommending an operator. So I'm kind of playing around with these ideas, but definitely, yes, someone that is more operationally minded than I am.
What is the difference between an integrator and an operator in your mind?
Yeah.
To me, they're the same thing.
Right. Well, I think if I'm understanding Alex Sharfin's ideas, is that the integrator and the Traction system doesn't do a clear enough job of making sure that the visionary is embedded in all of the relationships that integrator has, and isn't casting the vision, and there aren't systems for what that integrator should do and routines that the visionary is involved in. Like, the visionary still meets with the team at certain levels, and maybe the operator executes on the meeting, but the visionary is there to cast the vision and to be a bigger part of the thing. I think it's a systems question, and so that one person isn't the master puppeteer behind everything, and no one else really knows it, but also that person's also building other people's systems. But obviously, I'm just listening and reading and learning. So I'm trying to think, that's part of my issue. Like, what do I call this job description? So right now I'm working on content manager, because I think that if they can do that and they prove themselves to be a good problem solver, then I might move them to operator.
Very cool. Yeah. And just for the sake of the listeners that maybe have no idea what we're talking about, essentially, Traction is a book. It's a book called Traction, but it's a system of how to organize your company. And when you reach a certain level, just to give you one example, they say that there really should kind of be two people on the top. You have a visionary and an integrator. One person is more of like the CEO, higher level decisions, brainstorming ideas, but then you have another person that's very high up that can go implement the ideas. And that is the integrator. It's kind of like an operations manager or a COO, a chief operations officer. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. And this is definitely on my mind right now too, Marnie. And I don't want to reveal too much like on the podcast, but I actually want to talk to you for a minute after we stop recording, and I'll give you a little insight onto what specifically I'm doing. And hey, remember we were talking about opening loops earlier? That's one thing I'm doing, because I will share on the podcast.
Future. It's coming
in the future on what I'm doing. But I think that that's actually a need for me right now as well, for a lot of reasons. So I'll tell you what I've learned the past couple of weeks about that shortly. But very cool. So you are not perfect, and you are struggling with some things as well. Good to know. What about the pandemic? How did that affect your business?
It was crazy. I sent a survey, I think the weekend after schools closed, maybe the very weekend the schools closed, like around, it was like the 13th or something like that. It pretty much across the country, many schools closed on a Friday. And I got tremendous response back from my list. It was obviously it was a much better response than I would normally get. And I asked them, what do you need? And so then I started to create a lot of resources. I created a special pop-up group and was doing a lot of Facebook Lives just to teach them how to take some of our core activities and do it online, how to use Zoom, how to use Loom, which teachers don't know about. This is like a Screencastify type of program. So I did all of those things because I got that information back from my audience, and they were very grateful, and they ate it up. And a lot of people told me that helped them cope with that season. And at the same time, we saw our sales shoot up, and they haven't gone back down. So I have been growing every month for a long time, but I feel like it was a little bit bigger jump since March. Many teachers were actually not even able to teach. Their school district would say, no, since not everybody has access to something like Zoom, we're just not going to teach. And so they were idle. Not many, but there's a good chunk of them that were like that. Or if they were trying to reach the kids virtually, after a while they realized not much is happening. Many kids aren't showing up, and so they're looking for more professional development. Of course, people are more online. I know you saw that too with your business. So I am kind of thinking, when is this going to dip back down? But we haven't seen that yet. So yeah, it's been, we've been each month since March, we've been bigger than we've ever been before in sales.
That's great. I mean, obviously there's been a lot of, there's no graceful way to put it. It's been a very negative thing for the entire planet, right?
Right.
But there are small pockets of positivity here and there, and some people are getting to experience things or learn things that they never would have had time for otherwise.
Right.
So therefore, a lot of online courses are doing well, but others, if you teach people to do certain things in person, that type of online course probably isn't.
How to run a restaurant is probably not going to sell really well right now.
Probably not. How to put on a 10,000 person live event, things like that.
Yeah,
are probably not doing so well.
It's strange times.
So I don't want to get out of here before I ask for a little bit of advice for the audience. Like you had all these credentials, you have this passion about a topic, and you've made it a reality and turning it into an online membership that is very successful and having great impact on other people. Given your experience, what advice do you have for somebody out there that's got this passion that you had, they've got this information, that wants to turn it into a successful online course, online membership, and impact others the way that you have?
Mm-hmm. Well, find someone who you trust and follow what they say, and don't get overwhelmed by all the things. No one can do all the things. And yeah, you need to learn stuff about online business. You probably need to learn stuff about marketing and sales. but find the core things. Like I know, Jacques, what's your system you would teach after traffic? Is it conversions or?
Yeah, traffic funnel, course, and then student success.
Yeah. So focus on each of those in the right time, and don't worry about what you're going to do in 30 days. Just be relentless on making sure that you execute regularly with things that are going to move the needle. So early on with traffic, it's like get something out there to the world, whether it's a YouTube video or podcast or a blog post, and do it consistently and get feedback from the community, and keep refining your skills. So it's consistency and persistence, and listening to your community will help. It will teach you to provide what they want.
Excellent. Dr. Marnie Ginsberg, readingsimplified.com. Truly a pleasure. Thank you so much for stopping by today.
It's my treat. Thank you, Jacques.
Hey, David, welcome back. Let's get into this a little bit, man. I really enjoyed talking to Marnie. What did you think of it?
Oh, man, she's super inspirational. I loved her journey from teacher to researching a better way to now influencing these teachers all over the world. And man, just talk about an example of the start with why concept. I mean, what could be more important than teaching kids to read? And it was a super powerful story to hear.
Yeah, I love hearing these different perspectives, because like I was telling her, is like, oh wow, like you had really set the stage for your business. Unlike me, like I was throwing everything at the wall, trying to figure out what would work. Really wanted to just travel more, not have a boss, and kind of piano is just what ended up working for me. Whereas for her, she spent over a decade in this particular niche, really refining it, nailing down the problem even more, figuring out how she could help people even more before she ended up with a membership. I think if her motivation was like mine, where she's just trying to find any sort of business that would work, make some passive income, she wouldn't be near as successful as she is today. And I think if I were more like her, on that same note, I would have found success a lot sooner as well. So very interesting to hear that perspective from her. So let me kick it to you. Yeah. What's on your list, man?
The biggest thing is just this discussion. You mentioned it before the interview, but what are your thoughts on membership versus course, or a combination of the two? Like, what's the ideal, and what makes the difference for when one situation's better and another one? What would you say?
I think it's a very interesting conversation, and I think it's a conversation, a topic that is on a lot of people's minds that are in this space. Whether you have an online course, whether you have a membership, should I go the other way, or if you have both. Also, my brand is the online course guy. What if memberships start becoming the thing and online courses are like old news? It's like, oh goodness, should I change my brand name? And I don't think that's going to happen. But historically, I've been all about the online course. And the reason is because I think you can charge a higher price one time than what you could charge on a monthly basis before somebody actually leaves the membership, right? Mm-hmm. But also, that's looking at things through the lens of what's best for me. Mm-hmm. And as you know, lately, I've been trying to look through the lens more of what's best for the student. And I definitely think there's some advantages to a membership on the student. And like you alluded to earlier, I think the best situation might actually be both. Mm-hmm. We'll get into that in a little bit, but to answer your actual question here, in general, courses are better for things that are there. People can log in. All the content kind of exists. There's not going to be a lot of additional content there. Just like you buy a physical product at the store. You pay money, you get the thing doesn't really change in most cases, right? Membership is more of an ongoing, content's constantly being added, maybe a lot more interaction, community and whatnot. That's generally the difference that I've seen with a membership versus a course. Is that what you've seen as well?
Yeah, definitely. There's some expectation that there's going to be additional content in a membership.
Right. So for example, Next Level Courses is a membership. It's a monthly membership. I'm doing weekly Q&As. Every month I do a masterclass, like this month is Relaunch Magic, constantly adding new content. It's not a course, and it's certainly not a step-by-step A to Z course like my piano course is, because everybody's in a different situation in next level courses. It's for people that already have a course or membership and want to take it to the next level, so they can kind of pick and choose and figure out what's going to work best for them. So that's why I went membership there. Piano in 21 Days is a course. It exists. It's there. People sign up, one-time payment, and then they get the course. But through the years, I've also added things like a weekly Q&A, live Q&A, of a community, which is on Facebook right now, and certain levels of interaction with me. And I think there could be room for, sell the course on the front end and then have a membership on the back end with my piano side of things. And I'm kicking the tires with that right now. I think it could certainly be a possible thing in the future.
Yeah, so I guess if I was looking at yours, one of the ways that you could do it is you could say with your premium package, you get a year of membership in the community. After that, it goes to $10 a month, $20 a month, whatever it would be. Or you could even add another higher package and say, if you want to bump up to this $700 package, it actually includes lifetime membership in the community. And so, again, you have different ways that you could structure it, but what is your gut feeling? Would your conversions go down if you said, your first year of membership in the community is included? I would think your conversions would stay steady at that point, right?
I don't think they would go down, because I really try to sell people on the benefit and the transformation as opposed to the features, right? So if my pitch to you is, hey, you sign up for this program, this course, you're going to transform from somebody that doesn't know how to play piano to somebody that does know how to play piano. Whether the membership is, they immediately have to pay for it, they get 3 months free, year free, lifetime access, whatever, it doesn't change that initial pitch for the online course. Then, and by the way, I do like the idea of giving, a certain amount of time free into a potential membership, because then you won't truly know the benefits of the membership until you're actually in. So let's say that the membership has the community and the live Q&As, and maybe a couple other components. Well, you get in there, you start going through the course, maybe you even finish the course, but you're getting so much value out of these extra pieces that you don't want to leave. And the membership is, let's say it's $20 a month, or hey, let's say it's $21 a month, right? Stay on brand. Then that's twice the cost of Netflix. It's a little bit of money it depends on your perspective, but I think a lot of people could stick around, and it would just be added revenue to what I'm already doing, and allows me to just serve better and better and better. I mean, the more money I make from this, a lot of that I pour back into it and try to serve my customers better and better. So, and the thing that really put me over the edge to convince me that I think that a model of both could really work well is listening to Stu McLaren talk about it. And he's very much a membership guy, or at least that's what's in my head, because one of his claim to fame years ago was he created a membership plugin for WordPress. And back when I was getting started back in 2013, that's one of the options that I considered for how to put kind of your course behind a password protected wall. I think his plugin is called Wishlist Member. I think that's the one that was his. But I heard him talk recently about how he actually, I think he's got a course about how to run memberships. That's kind of a meta or whatever the word is, but he talks about how you can certainly have both, and you can have a course that leads to a membership, and you can even have a membership that leads to a course, and it's probably the best way to get the best of both worlds.
Definitely.
So right now I have on piano, I have a course, with Marnie, she's got a membership. Maybe both of us can branch out and add the other aspect and be doing even better.
Definitely. I mean, you can test it. But yeah, it can take a little while to see whether your total value from the customer increases with some of these if you make the changes. But I mean, it doesn't hurt to test.
Doesn't hurt. Well, usually it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, it can hurt to test.
I would kind of need to kind of grandfather my existing students. I could see it hurting to just all of a sudden kick everybody out of the group and the lives without warning and be like, all right, you got to all of a sudden pay me $100 a month. So.
I really found interesting the discussion that she said that she had both a discussion board and the Facebook group.
Yeah.
and how, she felt like that was good, but it does kind of split the audience. And so, yeah, it was just kind of interesting to picture that. And I know that after you did that interview with the creator of Mighty Networks, there's been a lot of discussion about moving these groups off of Facebook. And so people are definitely interested in what's the best way to go with that.
It's tough. I mean, like you said, I'm thinking about that myself with moving off of Facebook potentially, but there's Facebook groups serve certain groups of people better, right? And Gina from Mighty Networks is a little biased, right? She's got her own research and she created this company for a reason, and there's a lot of value there. But Facebook groups is kind of her competition in a lot of ways. And so we have to, listen to a lot of perspectives, and preferably from people that have been there, done that. In Marty's case, there's a reason that she's got things on Facebook and on her own discussion board as well. And that may be the way to go. I don't know. I'm trying to figure this stuff out too, and just share my findings with the audience.
Sure. Now, I actually have a suggested video. You're getting all these pieces in place to put out all this content. So I still think there's room for you to put out a video that would say, it would basically be 10 ways to teach your course members to have a better Facebook group experience. And so essentially, just breaking down, like, what are the things that people hate about Facebook? And the reality is, a lot of them you can actually take control of, but the average person in your course just hasn't taken the 2 minutes to learn how to do it. So, let's say that somebody hates seeing the ads. You're going to teach them, here's this certain browser plugin in Chrome that's going to take out all the ads. You hate seeing your friends that are super political. Like, it's super simple, like, unfollow them. But like, some people have never figured out how to unfollow. Managing the addictive side, how to manage your notifications. Some people still can't seem to find where the search bar is within a group. And I'm like, I'm like, figure out how to search within a group. So, I mean, there'd be room to say, if you don't think you like Facebook, there are actually ways that you can make it more pleasant so that you can have the best experience in our course group.
But see, here's the thing, David, you're biased too. You are an admitted Facebook addict. You love Facebook, right? So instead of taking these 10 steps, 10 hacks, why not just move it off somewhere else that's not Facebook?
Well, I mentioned in the Mighty Networks thing, like, I'm in this experiment, like, I'm in a group that moved. They were on Facebook. They had a very active group, and now they just moved it over to this other platform. It's Honeycomb. The comb has 2 M's is the platform they're using. But, I really do feel like it's one step forward, one step backwards as far as the engagement, the frustrations. There's a group of people that are glad to not have the frustrations of Facebook. And then this other group of people are like, this one sucks too. Or they see something else. So I'm seeing definitely a one step forward, one step backward within this current transition away from Facebook.
And I don't disagree with you. I was just kind of playing devil's advocate there. And that's part of the struggle I have. We keep talking about it, but it's like, some people like Facebook groups, some people don't. How do you serve both people? Hopefully we can answer that on a future episode.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, wherever they're at, teach them to improve the experience to what they love, to what makes it the best experience for them.
That's well said. Well said. Well, I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up on that beautiful quote right there. So, David, thank you so much for joining me here for another episode of the Online Course Show. This was episode 147. And so, folks listening, if they want to check out the show notes, any links that we mentioned throughout the whole show, you can go to oc.show/147. And that's going to do it for this one. We'll be back next week.